Department of Homeland Security agents have been deployed to Minnesota to some of these sites as an independent journalist, a viral YouTuber, put out videos showing that a lot of these daycare centers and other places seems to be, fronts.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children? There's no children inside this building. Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses.
Now, of course, you got to take it for what it is. We can't just say 100% that is what's happening. Of course, it is an independent journalist. Of course, it is someone on YouTube. So you got to do your own facts. But now, the Department of Homeland Security at least thinks it's serious enough to be sending agents there, deploying more resources. But one of the big things that has come out of this Minnesota fraud scandal, Will, is just really, I think, another one of those illuminating moments where people can see when they start realizing that we're talking about the billions and the multi-billions, how government waste does get out of hand. It's sort of a shame that something like the Doge department, not necessarily that it doesn't exist, it clearly still exists, still running in some ways, but sort of those early days aren't necessarily going as much as they were, because this is where I really want them to step in.
Well, that's right. And when you think about what Doge was saying they wanted to do is go after waste, fraud, and abuse. But anytime that they would start to look at programs like something like maybe childcare, helping people that can't afford childcare to get that so they can enter the workforce, the pushback from the left was like, you can't go near that. They're going to dismantle this.
Look, probably some from the right as well.
Well, right. But here's the problem. The waste, fraud, and abuse is rampant throughout the U.S. government, throughout these state governments, so much so that even the programs that should be helping people, whether you agree with them with your political philosophy or not.
Like if they should be funding it.
Right.
But at least in general, they're humanitarian in nature.
Right. The being able to have a safe place for children to go if they have parents that work and need a place for them to go.
Not a bad thing.
That's on the surface a good thing, or at least noble intentions. When you see how widespread, and this is something that even appeared to be investigated by local media in Minnesota about 10 years ago as well, where there was even people would go, sign their children in, get a kickback from centers, and leave with the children so that they could bill the government for the services. Some of these daycare centers that were visited by this independent journalist, they were getting millions of dollars in taxpayer money to provide these services. And when they were visited, there was no one there. Now, it is incumbent upon the federal investigators that are there to figure out the truth, to find out whether or not they are fraudulently billing, whether or not they are breaking laws, and to prosecute them to the fullest extent. But what I think is so telling is that the governor's office issued a statement to Fox News.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that this is all fake, we have looked into this, yada, yada, yada. They gave a mea culpa, like, we are not to blame here kind of statement.
Not fake. Yeah.
They said that the governor has worked for years to crack down on fraud and asked the state legislature for more authority to take aggressive action. He has strengthened oversight. So one, he's already trying to push it. Maybe it's the legislature's fault for not giving me more authority. But two, trying to say he has been strong in this. I want to contrast that with what we heard from the Assistant U.S. Attorney, Joe Thompson, just before Christmas. We played this soundbite because this was still talking about the food centers and the food fraud and the fraudulent billing and all that, where he had said of the $18 billion that had federally gone to Minnesota, about half of that was taken fraudulently. So $9 billion of taxpayer dollars were stolen, wasted. But here's what he had to say. And I think it was very telling that this statement came before what this journalist is putting out there, because it's illuminating. Let's go ahead and play Bite 2, Joe Thompson, Assistant U.S. Attorney.
And taxpayers deserve to know the truth of the fraud. The fraud is not small. It isn't isolated. The magnitude cannot be overstated. What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes. It's a staggering industrial scale fraud. It's swamping Minnesota and calling into question everything we know about our state.
So the Assistant U.S. Attorney there, Logan, is saying that it's industrial scale fraud. It's swamping Minnesota and calling into question everything we know about our state.